ex-U.S. Army vet who deserted Vietnam War to live dog's life in North Korea. d.ies. Charles Jenkins left his patrol unit along the border separating South Korea and the Hermit Kingdom in 1965 before leaving in 2004 for Indonesia. The deserter described his experiences in the communist state in an interview earlier this year. He said, "In North Korea, I lived a dog's life. Ain't nobody live good in North Korea. Nothing to eat. No running water. No electricity. In the wintertime you freeze. In my bedroom, the walls were covered in ice. I know I was not thinking clearly at the time, and a lot of my decisions don't make sense now, but at the time they had a logic to them that made my actions seem almost inevitable." Mr. Jenkins' cause of death is currently unknown. After marrying a Japanese abductee to North Korea in 1980 and having 2 daughters born in the rogue state later on, the family began living on an island in the Sea of Japan called Sato. During the later part of his life, Mr. Jenkins worked as a greeter in Mono Park, a tourist attraction on the small island. Visitors reportedly called the former Sergeant Jenkins-san when they saw him doing work at the park. When questioned on North Korea's provocative actions in August, Mr. Jenkins said he put nothing past North Korea. He explained, "North Korea could do anything. North Korea doesn't care." In 1965 the defector was posted in South Korea and was unhappy with his duties. He disclosed earlier this year that he feared being killed during the nighttime patrols he had to conduct in the region. Mr. Jenkins also believed he would be sent to Vietnam and would be killed there. He became depressed and developed an increasing fondness for alcohol. The deserter previously explained that he was not thinking clearly when he made the choice to cross the border into the Hermit Kingdom. He stated, "I know I was not thinking clearly at the time, and a lot of my decisions don't make sense now, but at the time they had a logic to them that made my actions seem almost inevitable." After crossing the Korean Demilitarized Zone, DMZ, on January 4, Mr. Jenkins was grabbed by North Korean guards. For his first 8 years in the rogue state he was held in a room with 3 other American defectors. During the period, the deserter was forced to memorize ideological books of Kim Il-sung. He was beaten when he failed to recite parts correctly. Mr. Jenkins escaped in 1966, went to the Russian embassy in the nation's capital and requested asylum. After being refused by the Russians, Mr. Jenkins felt he would be trapped in the isolationist state until death. He declared, "I'd never get out of North Korea. And more than likely I'd be there till I died." By 1972, North Korea had declared Mr. Jenkins a citizen and found him jobs to do. In 1980 the deserter met a 21-year-old Japanese woman that had been abducted by the Hermit Kingdom. Her name was Hitomi Suga. Mr. Jenkins declared, "I knew how badly my wife missed Japan, and so it wasn't long after we were married that I asked her what the Japanese word for good night was." He also revealed in his memoirs, "Thereafter, every night before we went to bed, I would kiss her 3 times and tell her, 'Oi Asumi.' Then she would say back to me, 'Good night,' in English. We did this so we would never forget who we really were and where we came from." Mr. Jenkins' daughters are now in their 30s. Kim Jong-il took the reins of North Korea in 2002 and admitted the country had abducted 13 Japanese citizens. He decided to let 5 be released. One of these was Hitomi Suga. After Mrs. Suga shared the news of her romance, the American deserter was soon let go by the country's Prime Minister, Junichiro Koizumi. As a punishment for his desertion, Mr. Jenkins spent 25 days in a military prison. When questioned on why the American never returned home, the former sergeant explained a lack of enthusiasm from his wife was the main reason. He went on, "I'd like to go back to the U.S., but my wife doesn't want to go, and I have no means to support her there. So I figure might as well stay where I'm at."